Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. I saw an article in the news today that the number one issue affecting voters now is the economy. And Donald Trump, basically the Trump supporters, the conservatives, are supporting Donald Trump because of his the hope, you could say, that he will improve the economy. Donald Trump, the Republicans have a problem with that. Looking back to George W. Bush and the tax cuts that they had, that they did. When Obama got into office, he got in running because the tax cuts had basically put everything backwards. It was a problem, and the reason for that is, I'm not an economist, but what I want to do is I want to explain to you about power games and the game of greed, for example, or the games where the idea of the trickle-down theory, the idea of closing us off because of controlling tariffs and things like that. The games they don't work. And the reason for it is, like the trickle-down theory, is because people equate money and power, and people don't willingly give up power. You don't, the idea of like any kind of tax cuts, they don't trickle down to anybody. There's a hope that they will, but they don't. So basically the backbone of any economy is small business. I'm working to start my own small business now. I was employed for many years as a dental hygienist working for somebody else, and now that I'm retired, basically, and able to do what my organization and start my own small business based on my talents and gifts, that's the second idea, is that everybody needs to start functioning from their own capacity. The idea that the games don't work, the small business, the economy is based on small business, and when when things get hard, people will start to function from their own talents and gifts. The problem that you run into, it's really hard to figure out for many people how to make that something that you can live on. How, if you're a singer, how do you make money? So the internet, for example, has allowed people to demonstrate their capacity more. And if for the people, like the people who have evacuated from Ukraine, and they have no jobs, and they're in somebody else's country, and they're trying to make their life happen. You know, the internet, how many times have you seen somebody from Ukraine trying to figure out how to make money off a family recipe or something like that? And people, out of kindness and generosity, will support that channel, even they don't necessarily need a recipe for some Ukrainian grandmother's cookies or something like that. So, but to have a stable economy, we need to build it, not with the idea that you're going to hope Donald Trump is going to trickle down some money for you, but it's that you're responsible for your own life, and if you don't do it, who will? You're responsible for your own financial support. And the thing about looking at an idea from a globalist standpoint, because we are still citizens of the universe, and we are still citizens of the planet, and we live in a closed ecosystem. Our economy is based on globalism. Made in China, or grown in Argentina, or bananas. Where in the United States are there banana plantations? You know, so I like bananas, and I watch to make sure that bananas, I can buy them, and they're, you know, if there's a disease for bananas, I tried to help figure out how to resolve the issue related to Panama disease in bananas. If I can solve a problem, then that is something that is where the new economy is going to be based on, is the idea of coming up with solutions that other people, if you have a solution, there's somebody out there who has a problem looking for your solution. And the whole idea is to find the connection between the two. Okay, this is something that a lot of younger people already are prepared for. The younger generations are brought in remembering things, and basically it's the older generations just have to get out of the way and allow the young people to function. That's not saying that they know how to solve for a lot of problems, but it's like my generation, we are now paying for the things that we did, our excesses or whatever, by not being stewards of the land. Okay, so if we are looking at a way to solve problems, our organization has actually 4 economic stimulus plans, and 2 of them address plugging the drain on the economy. If you're having a problem with your cash flow, you don't want your economy to go stagnant, so you have to keep the flow going. One of the things you want to do is, let's say you want to cut out the things that are not helping you. You want to plug the drain on things first, and then what you want to do is come up with a way to make money. Do it. So 2 of the drains, so let's talk about the 2 drains. One of them is on to the Middle East, which is the conflicts. And the other one is actually going to China, and the big drain, you could say, is the trophy wife idea and the divorces that are going on there. Because what happens is, in some cases, when a marriage breaks up, the California community property law is a problem. So that's one of the issues that we're going to work on too. And women are going to have to start to be responsible for their own financial support. In our Getting Out of the Abyss classes, we look at that issue about helping women become financially responsible for their own cash flow, their own financial support. And the reason for that is how to get divorced without causing problems. A long time ago in Europe, they had cities that had walls around them, and the women were responsible for the businesses. In the Bible, this is how it worked. A woman of noble character, Proverbs 39 says, is a woman of noble character, gets up in the morning and she weaves her sashes, and then her husband sells them down at the gate. So imagine sitting down at the gate, the husband is sitting down at the gate, and the caravans come in, and the carts, and some merchant comes in and says, I'm looking for sashes. Who's willing to make sashes? What do you have? And they go along, and the husbands are marketing the gift, the product, okay? And then they're also there if there's somebody who's coming in, and you look kind of suspicious, so you're gonna make sure that you don't. They're protecting the city too. Well, that's happening. I have a friend who is from Europe, and basically when he was talking about that, he's told me what it was like for him growing up in Slovenia, and he basically told us that at lunchtime all the guys would take off, and they would go down. This was a long time ago. I don't know what it's like. It's a modern city. It's a modern country now. But he worked when he was a child. He was in got put into a job by the government, and then he was there like an apprentice kind of thing. He was there, and then at lunch, they would take really long lunch breaks. And the reason they would do that is they would go down there, and they were always, it seemed like drinking is a great idea, and they probably learned that from as part of the past and a long time ago. But then they also, you could say that was also part of the culture where they were going down and they were paying attention to what was going on in the market area and what was happening around the city. They didn't just go to a job and insulate themselves in the job and then go home. They were always actively part of the city, part of doing things and going around as part of that culture. Okay, so when for younger people, they're trying to, let's say, come up with some sort of a way to have a cash flow going without necessarily, they know what in their heart what they want to do, but it's not necessarily capable for them to do it yet because they're programmed for a certain, they're born with a certain understanding and they remember what they were born to do, but then the adults are not working together to transition into this new economy. So the young people are all more empowered than the grown-ups, and the adults that I know are basically so tired that they don't want to work, and isn't that kind of the problem, is that people don't want to work now? And part of that is because nobody really wants to work at a job that they don't want to work, and they'd rather stay home, or they are not willing to settle for second best, but the economy isn't ready for that. So technically speaking, everybody has to start functioning from their talents and gifts. So if you are, let's say you're a really good cook and somebody has a job and they're a mediocre cook, and they have the job because they can't let go of the job, there's no people moving in. Everybody's kind of like in the wrong place, and we have to figure out how to sort people into the right places where people are always not settling for second best, that they're doing the job that they really like to do. When I was a dental hygienist, I worked long enough and I was tired of the job and I didn't have a way to transition out of it. And I had kind of sabotaged myself doing that. So people are sabotaging themselves too because they don't want the jobs, or they're empowered enough to go home, but then they don't know how to make a cash flow happen. Okay, so everybody has to, for the first principle of a global renaissance is that everybody has to function from their own capacity, but there has to be a structure in place for that to happen. Okay. So the first two things we're looking at is plugging the drain to the Middle East and the wars and the conflicts that are going there. And the other one, the second drain, is the drain on our economy to the Middle East, to the Far East, because, and China and Russia, or China and Japan and the countries like that, because the businesses have been outsourced and downsized, and the marriages have happened, and when they, in a trophy wife situation, when the marriage breaks up in the California, they have to divide it in half, and that doesn't, they're going to be cash rich but business poor. They divide it up, and then sometimes the businesses are being sold to people overseas or whatever. That's one of the problems that we're working on too, and that we have to bring the businesses back into the United States. They're already bringing the chip business in, and things in, making it so that let's say that we can separate out the businesses that are just like the inexpensive things from China, because China needs to, with their new Silk Road initiative. They're going to be selling their goods to possibly North Korea. South Korea and North Korea are in a perfect position to make a win-win agreement economically, and then get the United States out of North Korea or South Korea, and then South Korea can sell to the North Koreans and allow that economy to start growing again too. And then in exchange for their security, they don't need to worry about North Korea and security issues. You see, by the time this sorting out happens, where everybody's functioning from their own capacity, and many nations are that way, they have their niches. They do things very well, and once they do that and they start to create their niche based on their natural resources and their talents and gifts and such, then they'll be able to start to create a solid foundation. The United States is a breadbasket, and we are also an industrial nation, but we've never really we've manufactured things made in USA, you could say, and we are we're producing food and we are exporting things, but most of the things that we're doing, we're not really noted for either of those things, because other nations like Ukraine is a breadbasket for a lot of countries. But what our niche is, that makes us unique, that makes us bring people in, that made us a very powerful country, was we're a breadbasket, or a melting pot, you could say, of a lot of different cultures. And by doing that, by being that way, and by guaranteeing the rights of we're kind of like, we've always been known as a place of opportunity, where people can come here and create something very quickly. But what has happened is that by keeping people out, that hasn't really been the opportunity, because our nation is a melting pot. We cannot keep other cultures out because we are a melting pot. We are made up of lots of different cultures. When you leave one person out, what is that niche idea? What sets us apart as a country is not being a breadbasket or an industrial country, is our Constitution, because that's what we are going to be marketing to other nations. That's what sets us apart, what makes us totally unique from other people. That's what you want to do, is figure out what makes, on an individual basis, what makes you totally unique. You have to be very careful when you do that, though, because there's downsides to that. We have to, like I said, we have to sort out a lot of different things first, because let's say down in Miami and in Texas, there have been Hispanic people who've come, and even generations, let's say their parents or grandparents had a small business, a store, grocery store in a town, and small town, and right at a crossroads, and everybody stopped there, so it made money. But then the highway comes in and passes the small town, and nobody shops there anymore. Okay, so they own the store, and it's not making any money anymore. It's just some land, and nobody wants to buy it. Well, in Miami, that kind of thing happened, and the Cubanos decided that they wanted to do some sort of art galleries, and then they loaned money. And the reason I'm telling you this is because this is basically what happened. They started these art galleries with this. Their art is so unique, and it's so fun, and it's so it's unique. It made them famous, you could say, but they were marketing their famous artwork, trying to do that to the the wealthy people across the bay in Miami. You could say there's all the waterways and such. So the poorer people are living further inland, and the wealthy people are out on the oceanfront area. So what happens then is that by moving into that place, they borrowed money, you could say, and then the sharks came in, the pests came in and wanted their money. Well, these young people from Cuba, of Cuban descent, couldn't pay it back. They didn't have any way to pay it back. They were going to have this business and they were going to market it, and nobody wanted to buy it. Okay, so that is what happened when the pests come in to get the money. That's how Zika virus started. That if you look at where Zika virus, they had their business was their baby. The women decided they were ready to have children, and their children's were being squeezed. The babies that are born with Zika virus, their heads are being squeezed. It looks like they're squeezed. So that's what was happening, is that they equated their business with their baby. This is now the chance that we can have our children, we can have our life, we can start to have a family, we can start to get a cash flow, and then basically the sharks moved in and to take the land that had been in the family for several generations. If you look in different parts of the world where Zika virus is, you see the very poor people and the very wealthy people living next to the other, and the poorer people are trying to market their wares, their products to the wealthy people, and the wealthy people are not interested. So that's when the loan sharks move in and take advantage of it. The pests, the mosquitoes, the blood-sucking pests. Okay? So be very careful not to if you have your talents and gifts, be very careful not to borrow any money on it. But maybe take one of those jobs for a little while until you can save up money, or do something that try and figure out what makes you unique. Try and figure out what is something that everybody needs. There's lots of different ways to do that. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Is the United States would never, the vast majority of the United States would ever consider a constitution to make us unique and what we can market with the rest of the world. We don't. So many people are looking at that and saying, we don't want to share our Constitution. This is what makes us great. Our Constitution, we uphold the Constitution and we do all that. Well, if you took the U.S. Constitution, considered that to be open source, and you took the same document and you put it in every country in the world, after 100 years, there would be 100 different interpretations of that, because the legal system and everything associated with it, the Constitution is, anybody can take it and use it. It's open source. Nobody owns it. It's something that anybody can use. It's nobody owns it, so anybody can take it and use it. And that's what we are doing. Is we are working to create. My organization is working to create an international government based on that Constitution. But it's not the United States who's going to tell everybody what to do. It's that it's an additional layer over what already exists. And that's why what we have to do is we have to amend our Constitution to create this additional layer. And then we are going to take that, write a new Constitution based on this same idea. And I explained that in my manual for the One World Government. I explained how to write a new Constitution based on this, where it's not somebody who says, okay, write your Constitution, and and then we know that you don't know how to write a Constitution, and that's what happened in Iraq. The people of Iraq were going, we get to write a Constitution, we're going to start our own government, and then they came up with something that really was not adequate for keeping their country to create a government. And they're probably going to have to write a new one pretty soon, because when they find out how to write a constitution, there are going to be a lot of countries that are writing new constitutions on the inside their country based on this new idea of that and how to write a constitution that will last a long time, that will keep your country secure, and that will allow a sense of prosperity for everybody. We're not going to go around and tell anybody what to do. We just show people how to do it. But if we are looking at something that is not fair, we know that it's not going to last much longer. So if you are relying on Donald Trump to be your source of prosperity, it won't work, because it doesn't address the root cause of the problem. Small business. How is Donald Trump working to help you start your small business? How does he care whether you or not you are starting a small business? How do you do that? Okay? So that's what I wanted to say today. Thank you for stopping by. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe. But most of all, share, especially if you know somebody who's trying to start a small business or trying to get out of an economic crisis, or, you know, if you tell a conservative who's relying on Donald Trump to make him prosperous again, great again, meaning prosperous again, you can say the trickle-down idea doesn't work because people equate money and power, and nobody willingly lets go of their money or their power. It's only when, in fact, Donald Trump is holding onto his money so hard that he's not going to let you have any of it. So, or me. So I ask that you like, share, and subscribe. Think about it.